The blue waters of Serenity Prime turned red with blood. Elder Shimmer of Deep Currents watched from his crystal tower as the sky burned above his peaceful world. The Korthok ships looked like metal sharks cutting through the clouds, dropping fire and death on everything below. His people had never known war. The Zephyrians were gentle beings who lived in harmony with their ocean world. They had soft, translucent skin that glowed with inner light, and their cities were made of living coral that grew in beautiful patterns beneath the waves. For thousands of years, they had studied art, music, and science. They knew nothing about fighting or killing, but the Korthok Empire knew plenty about both. The reptilian warriors had come without warning 3 days ago. Their massive warships blocked out the sun as they demanded surrender. When the Zephyrian Council tried to negotiate, the Korthok had laughed and opened fire. Now, the beautiful coral cities lay in ruins, and millions of innocent people were dead or dying. Shimmer swam quickly through the flooded corridors of the council chamber. His fins were torn, and green blood leaked from cuts on his sides. The building shook as another Korthok bomb exploded nearby, sending chunks of crystal falling into the water around him. He found the other council members huddled around their emergency communication array. The device was old and barely working, but it was their only hope. Ripple of an ancient wisdom, the oldest member of their group, was trying to get it to work with her trembling fins. "Is it ready?" Shimmer asked, his voice creating bubbles in the water. "Almost," Ripple replied, "but I do not know if anyone will hear us. The galaxy is vast, and we are so few." Through the crystal walls, they could see Korthok soldiers marching through the ruins of their city. The reptilian warriors were twice the size of any Zephyrian, with thick scales and sharp claws. They carried weapons that could melt through coral and metal alike. Behind their dark helmets, their eyes glowed with cruel hunger. "They will kill us all," whispered Flow of Curious Thoughts, the youngest council member. She was barely more than a child, her skin still showing the bright patterns of youth. "Why do they hate us so much? We never hurt anyone." Shimmer placed a gentle fin on her shoulder. "They do not hate us, young one. We are simply in their way. The Korthok Empire takes what it wants, and they want our world." The communication array finally hummed to life. Ripple quickly began entering the codes for the emergency distress signal. According to the old stories, there was supposed to be a group called the Galactic Peacekeepers who helped civilized species in trouble. No one had ever seen them, but the legends said they watched over the galaxy and protected the innocent. "Attention, Galactic Peacekeepers," Ripple spoke into the transmitter, her voice shaking with fear and hope. "This is Elder Ripple of Ancient Wisdom of the Zephyrian Council on Serenity Prime. We are under attack by the Korthok Empire. Our people are dying. We have no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight back. We are a peaceful species. We have never harmed anyone. Please, if you can hear this message, we need help. They are killing everyone. Our children, our elders, our artists, and teachers. Please help us." She repeated the message several times in different languages, broadcasting it on all frequencies their equipment could reach. The signal went out into space, carrying their desperate plea across the void between stars. Far away, in a place the Zephyrians had never heard of, the message was received. Dr. Lisa Morgan was drinking her third cup of coffee when the communication alert sounded in the deep space monitoring station. The small outpost orbited a dead planet on the edge of human space, watching for threats or interesting signals from the galaxy beyond. Lisa was a language expert who specialized in alien communication. She had studied dozens of non-human languages, though she had never actually met an alien. Humans had been exploring space for decades, but they had not yet made contact with any other intelligent species. The signal was weak and broken, but Lisa could tell it was a distress call. She ran it through her translation programs and felt her heart sink as the meaning became clear. Somewhere out there, an entire species was being wiped out, while she sat safely in her station drinking coffee. She immediately called Admiral Jack Harrison at the main fleet base. The admiral was a tough man with gray hair and scars from the mining wars on Titan. He listened carefully as Lisa explained what she had found. "How sure are you about this translation?" he asked. "Very sure, sir. They are asking for help from something called the Galactic Peacekeepers. I think they believe there is some kind of space police force that protects civilized species." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "And they sent this to us by mistake?" "It looks that way, sir. They are broadcasting on all frequencies, hoping someone will hear them." The Admiral made his decision quickly. "Send the signal to Captain Ryan Blake on the UES Defender. Tell him to prepare his fleet for immediate departure. We may not be these galactic peacekeepers they are looking for, but we are not going to let an entire species die while we sit here doing nothing." Captain Blake received the message an hour later while his ship was docked for repairs. He was a young officer with dark hair and intelligent eyes. He had earned his command through skill and bravery during the asteroid pirate conflicts. When he read Lisa's translation of the alien distress call, he knew what he had to do. "How long to get there?" he asked his navigation officer. 18 hours at maximum speed, sir. Then we leave in 2 hours. Contact the EU's Valiant and the UES Thunder. Tell them we have a rescue mission." Blake did not know that humans had a reputation in the galaxy. He did not know that Earth was classified as a death world, or that most alien species considered humans to be the most dangerous predators in known space. He only knew that innocent people were dying, and he had the power to help them. As the human fleet prepared to leave, the Zephyrian message continued to broadcast into space. But now, it was too late for anyone else to answer. The Korthok Empire was finishing their work, and soon there might be no one left to save. On Serenity Prime, Shimmer and the other council members waited in their flooded chamber, hoping that someone, somewhere, had heard their call for help. They did not know that help was coming. They also did not know that the help they were about to receive would be more terrifying than the enemy they faced. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Serenity Prime system. Captain Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, looking at the sensor readings with growing anger. The planet below was covered in smoke and fire. Orbital debris from destroyed stations drifted like metal snow through space. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Amy Richardson from her position at the engineering station. "What did they do to this place?" Dr. Lisa Morgan had come along, on the mission to help with communication. She studied the readings from her console and shook her head sadly. The population readings show massive casualties. Millions of life signs have disappeared since we received their message. Captain Blake clenched his fists. They had come as fast as they could, but it might not have been fast enough. "Take us down to the planet. Look for survivors." The Defender and its escort ships descended through the smoky atmosphere. Below them, the ocean world of Serenity Prime stretched endlessly in all directions. But where there should have been beautiful coral cities, there were only ruins. The water was dark with ash and debris. "Sir, I am picking up life signs from an underwater structure about 50 kilometers north," reported Ensign Danny Collins from the sensor station. "It looks like some kind of shelter." "That's where we are going," Blake decided. "Dr. Morgan, are you ready for first contact?" Lisa nodded, though she felt nervous. She had studied alien languages her whole life, but she had never actually talked to an alien before. "I have the translation programs ready, sir. We should be able to communicate." The human ships landed on a floating platform near the underwater shelter. Blake selected a small team for the first meeting. Dr. Morgan for communication, Dr. Kevin Torres, who specialized in underwater environments, and Sergeant Danny Collins for security. They put on their environmental suits and descended into the dark water. The Zephyrian shelter was a marvel of organic architecture. Living coral had been shaped into chambers and tunnels that glowed with soft bioluminescent light. Schools of tiny fish swam through the corridors, and underwater plants provided both food and oxygen for the water-breathing inhabitants. The humans swam through the entrance tunnel, their suit lights cutting through the gloom. Dr. Torres was amazed by what he saw. "This is incredible," he said over the radio. "They have created a complete ecosystem down here. The coral is actually alive and growing." They found the survivors in a large central chamber. About 30 Zephyrians floated in the water, their translucent bodies glowing with fear and exhaustion. When they saw the humans approaching, several of them let out high-pitched sounds of terror. Dr. Morgan activated her translation program and spoke slowly into her communicator. "Hello, we are here to help. We received your message asking for aid." The Zephyrians huddled together at the far end of the chamber. One of them, an elderly individual with elaborate fin patterns, swam forward cautiously. This was Elder Shimmer of Deep Currents, though the humans did not know his name yet. "You, ... Shimmer's voice came through the translator as a whisper. "You are not the Galactic Peacekeepers." "No," Dr. Morgan replied honestly. "We are humans from the planet Earth, but we heard your distress call and came to help." The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Every Zephyrian in the chamber began to produce rapid flashing light patterns with their skin. The translation program could not keep up with all the overlapping voices, but Lisa caught fragments: Deathworlders, predators, run, hide. Young Flow of Curious Thoughts, who had been floating near the back of the group, fainted from pure shock. Her small body drifted in the water until another Zephyrian caught her. "What are they saying?" Sergeant Collins asked. "Why are they so scared?" Dr. Morgan checked her translation program with growing confusion. "They keep calling us something that translates as Deathworlders, or Planet Killers. I think they are afraid of us." Elder Shimmer forced himself to swim closer, though every instinct told him to flee. "You are from Earth, the Death World, the place where the sky rains acid and the ground burns with fire. Earth is our home," Dr. Torres said gently. "But it does not rain acid. We have rain, but it is just water. Water that falls from the sky," Shimmer asked in disbelief. "And you survive this?" The humans looked at each other in confusion. Dr. Morgan tried to explain. "Yes, rain is normal on our world. It helps plants grow. We like rain." This seemed to make the Zephyrians even more frightened. They whispered among themselves in their own language, which the translator could not follow when they spoke so quickly. Sergeant Collins decided to try being friendly. He reached into his pack and pulled out a food ration. "Here," he said, offering it to Shimmer. "Are you hungry? This is food from our world." Shimmer looked at the package with horror. Through the clear wrapper, he could see what looked like pieces of dead animal flesh mixed with unknown chemicals. "You eat corpses." "It is just beef jerky," Collins said, confused. "Dried meat. It tastes pretty good." The word meat sent another wave of panic through the Zephyrians. They were plant-eaters who had never killed anything in their lives. The idea that these creatures casually consumed the flesh of other animals was beyond their comprehension. Dr. Torres tried to help by describing human biology. "We are omnivores," he explained. "We eat both plants and animals. Our teeth are designed for tearing and grinding different types of food." When he smiled to show his teeth, several Zephyrians fled to the back of the chamber. To them, his canine teeth looked like the fangs of an apex predator. "Your forward-facing eyes," Shimmer whispered, his whole body shaking. "Your sharp teeth, your thick skin that does not glow. You are hunters, killers." Dr. Morgan was starting to understand. "I think there has been a mistake. You thought you were calling for help from peaceful beings like yourselves. But humans are ... different." "Different?" Shimmer asked. "You are? The most dangerous species in the galaxy. Everyone knows the stories of Earth. A world so violent that the very atmosphere tries to kill you. where storms can destroy cities and the ground shakes and splits open. How do you survive in such a place? We adapt. Captain Blake's voice came through the radio as he listened to the conversation from the ship above. Dr. Morgan, ask them where the attackers are now. When Morgan translated the question, Shimmer pointed upward with a trembling fin. The Korthok ships are in orbit. They are waiting for us to surrender or die. They will return tomorrow to finish what they started. Not if we have anything to say about it, Blake said grimly. Collins, Torres, bring our new friends to the surface. We need to show them that being scary can be a good thing. But as the humans prepared to leave the shelter, alarms began sounding throughout the Zephyrian facility. Someone was approaching. From above, the Korthak Empire had detected the human ships and decided to investigate. Elder Shimmer looked up at the humans with an expression of complete despair. Now we are trapped between two groups of predators, he said quietly. The Korthok who will kill us quickly, and the Deathworlders who will probably do worse. Dr. Morgan wanted to explain that humans were not monsters, but she could see that words alone would not convince the terrified Zephyrians. The humans would have to prove their intentions through actions. Above them, the first Korthok ships were beginning their descent toward the planet's surface, ready to face whatever new threat had dared to enter their conquest zone. The Korthok warfleet descended from orbit like a swarm of metal locusts. Commander Razorclaw stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the strange vessels that had dared to enter his conquest zone. The ships were smaller than his own mighty warships, but they had an odd design he had never seen before. Unknown vessels, he broadcast on all frequencies, his voice a harsh growl. You have entered Korthok territory. Identify yourselves and prepare to surrender, or we will destroy you. Captain Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the enemy ships approach. Through the view screen, he could see they were massive reptilian vessels covered in spikes and weapons. They looked like they had been designed by someone who wanted to scare their enemies before killing them. This is Captain Ryan Blake of the United Earthship Defender, he replied calmly. We are here on a humanitarian mission to assist the Zep people. Withdraw your forces immediately. Razorclaw laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Humans. I have never heard of this species. You must be another weak prey race trying to play hero. We are the Korthak Empire. We have conquered 47 worlds. Your little ships will burn like all the others. Sir, Lieutenant Richardson called from her station. They are powering up weapons. 6 ships moving to attack formation. Blake nodded calmly. All ships, prepare for combat. Remember, we are here to protect innocent people. Make every shot count. The first Korthok plasma beams lanced out across space, striking the human ships with enough energy to melt through most known metals. But the human vessels had been built to survive in the harsh environment around Earth, where solar radiation and magnetic storms were daily hazards. Their armor held, though barely. Return fire, Blake ordered. The human ships responded with weapons that confused the Korthok. Instead of the energy beams most species used, the humans fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The kinetic rounds punched through Korthok shields like they were paper, causing massive damage to the reptilian ships. Impossible, Razorclaw snarled as his flagship shook under the impact. No species uses primitive kinetic weapons in space combat. These humans fight like savages, his weapons officer reported with growing alarm. They are using tactics I have never seen. Their ships move like predators, not like civilized vessels. Down on the planet's surface, the Zephyrians watched the battle from their underwater shelter. Elder Shimmer and his people could see the explosions lighting up the dark water above them. They had never witnessed space combat before, and the violence horrified them. The Deathworlders are fighting the Korthok, Flow of Curious Thoughts whispered, her young voice full of wonder and terror. They are actually fighting them. Dr. Morgan and her team had remained in the shelter to protect the Zephyrians. She was monitoring the battle through her communicator. listening to the calm voices of the human crew as they fought for their lives. "Dr. Torres," she said quietly, "I think you should look at this." Dr. Torres swam over to where she was floating. On her portable screen, he could see vital signs monitoring the Zephyrians around them. "Their stress levels are off the charts," he said with concern. "Just watching us fight is traumatizing them." "It is worse than that," Dr. Morgan replied, checking her translation program. "Listen to what they are saying about us." The Zephyrians were speaking among themselves in rapid, frightened voices. The translator caught fragments of their conversation. "They fight in the void of space like it means nothing. They use weapons that fire solid metal. No civilized species would fight so brutally. They are worse than the Korthok." In space above, the battle was turning in humanity's favor. The Korthok had expected to face another typical galactic species, beings who fought with energy weapons at long range and avoided taking damage. Instead, they found themselves facing opponents who seemed to welcome close combat and could take enormous punishment while continuing to fight. Lieutenant Sarah Davis had boarded one of the damaged Korthok ships with her Marine unit. What she found inside shocked even her. The Korthok warriors were huge reptilian beings with thick scales and sharp claws, but they moved slowly and seemed confused by the humans' aggressive tactics. "This is Davis," she reported over the radio as her team secured the ship's engine room. "The Korthok are tough, but they fight like they have never faced real resistance before. They keep trying to intimidate us instead of just shooting." One of the Korthok warriors cornered Sergeant Collins in a narrow corridor. The reptilian soldier was twice Collins' size and armed with a plasma rifle. But when Collins simply ignored a blast that would have killed most galactic species and kept advancing with his kinetic weapon, the Korthok actually backed away in fear. "These are not normal prey creatures," the Korthok warrior reported to his commander in their own language. "They do not fear death. They do not run when hurt. What kind of world creates such monsters?" Chief Engineer Rick Murphy was working frantically to repair damage to the Defender's hull. A Korthok plasma beam had burned through the outer armor, exposing the interior to the vacuum of space. In the old days, this would have been a critical emergency requiring immediate evacuation of that section. But Murphy simply put on his environment suit and went outside the ship to make repairs while the battle continued around him. He worked calmly in the vacuum of space, welding new armored plates in place while plasma beams and kinetic rounds flew past him. To the watching Korthok, it looked like the human was casually performing maintenance in conditions that would instantly kill most living beings. "Sir," the Korthok sensor officer reported with a shaking voice, "one of the humans is working outside his ship in vacuum during combat." Razorclaw stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. "That is impossible. No species can survive in hard vacuum without a ship. He is wearing some kind of protective suit, sir, but he is working as if the environment means nothing to him." For the first time in his military career, Razorclaw felt genuine fear. His empire had conquered dozens of worlds by intimidating their inhabitants with superior technology and ruthless tactics. But these humans seemed immune to intimidation. They fought like the universe was trying to kill them every day, and they were used to it. Down in the underwater shelter, the Zephyrians were having similar thoughts. They had watched Dr. Torres casually swim through water that was contaminated with Korthok, industrial waste chemicals that would have been toxic to their delicate systems. They had seen Sergeant Collins treat a minor injury with medical supplies that included procedures no civilized species would attempt on a living being. "They are not here to save us," Elder Shimmer said quietly, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with despair. "They are here to claim our world for themselves. We called for help from the galactic peacekeepers, and instead we summoned the most dangerous predators in the galaxy." Young Flow of Curious Thoughts looked up at Dr. Morgan, who was carefully monitoring the Zephyrian health readings and making notes about their biology. To the young Zephyrian, it looked like the human Scientist was studying them like laboratory specimens. What will they do to us when they win? She asked in a small voice. None of the adult Zephyrians had an answer. In all their stories and legends, there was no precedent for this situation. They had never heard of a species that fought like the humans, or one that could survive in conditions that would kill other beings. Above them, the space battle was reaching its climax. The Korthok fleet was in retreat, but Razorclaw was preparing one final, desperate attack. If he could not defeat these mysterious humans, he would at least make them pay a terrible price for their victory. The Zephyrians waited in their shelter, trapped between the departing Korthok and the victorious humans, wondering which fate would be worse. The battle in space was over. The last Korthok ships limped away into the darkness, their hulls scarred and smoking. Commander Razorclaw had retreated with his surviving vessels, but not before sending a priority message to the Korthok High Command. Do not engage the humans. They are Deathworlders. Repeat, do not engage. Captain Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the enemy fleet disappear into faster-than-light travel. Around him, his crew worked to repair the damage from the battle. They had won, but the victory felt hollow. The Zephyrians they had come to save were still terrified of them. Sir, Dr. Morgan's voice came through the communicator from the underwater shelter. I need you to come down here. There is something important the Zephyrians need to tell us. Blake made his way down to the shelter with a small team. He found Dr. Morgan floating in the water with Elder Shimmer and several other Zephyrians. The aliens still looked frightened, but there was something else in their glowing patterns now, a kind of resigned curiosity. Captain, Dr. Morgan said quietly, they have been telling me about humanity's reputation in the galaxy. We need to hear this. Elder Shimmer swam forward, slowly, his elderly body trembling with effort and fear. Captain Blake of the Deathworlders, he began, his voice coming through the translator in halting words. We must speak truthfully now. The battle is over, and you have won. We are at your mercy. We are not here to hurt you, Blake said gently. We came because we heard your distress call. We wanted to help. That is what we do not understand, Shimmer replied. In all the stories told throughout the galaxy, the Deathworlders are described as the most dangerous beings in existence. Your world, Earth, is known as the most hostile planet ever discovered. Yet, you claim you came to help us. Dr. Morgan activated her recording equipment. Elder Shimmer, can you tell us exactly what the galaxy knows about humans? Shimmer's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a storytelling configuration. The legends speak of a world at the edge of the galaxy, where the very air burns the lungs, of visitors, where water falls from the sky like acid rain, where the ground shakes and splits open without warning, where storms can destroy entire cities, and the temperature changes so rapidly that most species would die from shock. Blake frowned. Earth does have weather, but it is not that extreme. You do not understand, Shimmer continued. The galactic community has studied your world from a distance. Your atmospheric composition would kill most species within minutes. The gravity is so strong it would crush the bones of many races. The radiation levels from your star are deadly to most life forms. Engineer Tony Clark, who had come down with the captain, looked confused, but that is just normal Earth environment. We evolved there. Young Flow of curious thoughts swam closer, her curiosity overcoming her fear. That is exactly the point, she said in her high, musical voice. You evolved on a world that would kill us. That makes you the ultimate predators. Every story in the galaxy warns about the Deathworlders who could survive anywhere and fight anything. Dr. Morgan was starting to understand. So when we showed up claiming to be here to help, we thought it was a hunting technique, Shimmer admitted. Predators sometimes use deception to get close to their prey. We thought you were studying us to see how best to capture or kill us. Captain Blake sat down heavily on a piece of coral furniture that had been grown for human visitors. So the entire galaxy thinks we are monsters. Not monsters, Flo corrected him carefully. Monsters can be defeated or reasoned with. You are something worse. You are survivors. The stories say that Deathworlders can adapt to any environment, fight in any condition, and never give up, no matter how badly they are hurt. Dr. Torres, who had been quietly studying the Zephyrian biology readings, looked up from his equipment. Is that why you were so scared when we offered you food and medical help? Your food is the flesh of dead animals, Shimmer said with a shudder. Your medicine includes procedures that would be considered torture by most civilized species. When Dr. Torres cleaned that small cut on Sergeant Collins' hand with alcohol, we thought we were watching you deliberately cause pain for pleasure. Dr. Jennifer Walsh had just arrived from the medical bay on the ship above. She had brought medical supplies to help treat the wounded Zephyrians. But when she unpacked her equipment, the aliens recoiled in horror. What is wrong? She asked Dr. Morgan. I just brought basic first aid supplies. Show them the antiseptic, Dr. Morgan suggested. Dr. Walsh held up a small bottle of hydrogen peroxide. This is for cleaning wounds to prevent infection. Elder, Shimmer examined the bottle through the water with his large eyes. You use chemical solvents on open injuries, and this prevents death. Well, yes, it kills bacteria that might cause infection. You poison wounds to heal them? Flo asked, in amazement. Only Deathworlders would think to fight disease by using more toxins. Dr. Walsh looked at her medical kit with new eyes. From the Zephyrian perspective, human medicine must look like a collection of torture devices and poisons. Pain medication that would be deadly to their delicate systems. Surgical procedures that involved cutting through living tissue. Sterilization techniques using chemicals that would burn their skin. Captain, Dr. Morgan said slowly, I think I understand what happened. The Zephyrians sent out a distress call, hoping to reach something called the Galactic Peacekeepers. But there are no Galactic Peacekeepers, are there? Shimmer shook his head sadly. It is a legend, a story we tell ourselves, about civilized species who protect the innocent. Most of the galaxy is made up of species like us, peaceful beings who avoid conflict. When the Korthak Empire or other predator races attack, we usually just surrender or flee. Because you have no one to protect you, Blake realized. Exactly. The galaxy is divided between prey species and predator species. The prey species try to hide and avoid trouble. The predator species take what they want. There is no middle ground. Flow of curious thoughts swam closer to Captain Blake, her young mind working through the implications. But you are different, are you not? You are predators who protect prey. That should be impossible. Why should it be impossible? Blake asked. Because predators take care of themselves first. They do not risk their lives for strangers. But you came here knowing you might die to save people you had never met. That is not predator behavior. Engineer Clark smiled. That is just human behavior. On Earth, we have always had to work together to survive. Our world is dangerous, so we learn to help each other. Your dangerous world made you more cooperative, not less. Shimmer asked in wonder. Of course. If we only cared about ourselves, we would have gone extinct long ago. The Zephyrians looked at each other with expressions of amazement. This concept was completely alien to their understanding of how the galaxy worked. Dr. Morgan was making notes frantically. Elder Shimmer, when the Korthak Empire heard that humans were here, how did they react? They sent immediate warnings to all their ships to avoid contact with Deathworlders at all costs. Commander Razorclaw was ordered to retreat rather than risk his fleet against you. Captain Blake stood up suddenly. Dr. Morgan, do you realize what this means? I think so, sir. If the galaxy is really divided between predators and prey, and if all the predator species are afraid of humans, then we have accidentally become the galactic peacekeepers the Zephyrians were looking for, Blake finished. Every prey species in the galaxy is going to start calling us for help. Flo V. Curious Thoughts clapped her small fins together in excitement. And every predator species is going to avoid conflicts because they are afraid you might show up. The humans looked at each other with a mixture of pride and concern. They had come here to save one small species from extinction, but they had stumbled into something much larger. Whether they wanted it or not, humanity had just become the guardians of the galaxy. 3 days later, the Korthok Empire's main battle fleet arrived at Serenity Prime. Supreme War Leader Bonecrusher brought 50 of his best warships and 10,000 elite warriors to deal with what his subordinates were calling a Deathworlder problem. Bonecrusher was the most feared warrior in the Korthok Empire. He stood 3 meters tall, with scales like black armor and claws that could cut through steel. He had personally conquered 12 worlds and had never been defeated in combat. The idea that some unknown species had driven off his forces was an insult he could not tolerate. "This ends today," he growled to his bridge crew as they approached the planet. "I will challenge their leader to single combat. When I tear him apart with my bare claws, his people will surrender or flee like all the others." Captain Blake watched the massive Korthok fleet approach on his view screen. The enemy ships were enormous compared to the small human task force, and their weapons could probably destroy the Earth vessels in a direct fight. But Blake had learned something important about galactic warfare over the past few days. Most species fought to avoid taking damage, not to win at any cost. "Sir," Lieutenant Richardson reported from her station, "we are receiving a communication from the lead Korthok ship." "Put it on screen." The image of Supreme Warleader Bonecrusher filled the view screen. Even the humans, who were used to dangerous predators from Earth, felt a chill at the sight of the massive reptilian warrior. His red eyes burned with hatred, and his voice was like grinding stone. "I am Supreme Warleader Bonecrusher of the Korthok Empire. I have come to settle this matter personally. I challenge the leader of the humans to single combat. If your champion defeats me, my forces will withdraw and never return to this system. If I win, your people will surrender immediately." Blake looked around his bridge at his crew. Dr. Morgan was monitoring the conversation from the planet below, where she was still working with the Zephyrians' captain. Her voice came through the communicator. "The Zephyrians say, this is how the Korthok usually end their conquests. Their leader fights the enemy leader, and the winner takes everything." "And if I refuse the challenge?" Blake asked. Bonecrusher's laugh was like breaking glass. "Then we will simply destroy your ships and take the planet anyway. But you will die as cowards instead of warriors." Blake made his decision quickly. "I accept your challenge. Name the place and conditions. We will fight in the asteroid field near the 4th planet. The environment is lethal to most species. Hard vacuum, extreme temperature variations, and high radiation levels. Perfect conditions to test a true warrior." Blake nodded calmly. "Agreed. 1 hour from now." When the communication ended, his bridge crew looked at him with concern. "Sir," Lieutenant Richardson said quietly, "that creature is 3 times your size and armed with natural weapons." "Are you sure about this?" "I am sure," Blake replied. "Mr. Murphy, prepare a combat environment suit. Full life support and radiation shielding." Down on Serenity Prime, the Zephyrians were gathered around Dr. Morgan's communication equipment, listening to the preparations for the battle. Elder Shimmer floated beside her, his bioluminescent patterns showing deep worry. "Captain, Blake cannot win," he said sadly. "Bonecrusher has killed hundreds of warriors in single combat. He is the ultimate predator." "You do not know humans very well yet," Dr. Morgan replied with a small smile. "We have a saying on Earth. It is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog." Flow of Curious Thoughts swam closer. "What does that mean?" "It means courage and determination matter more than size and strength." An hour later, Captain Blake floated alone in the asteroid field near the 4th planet. The environment was indeed lethal. Airless space filled with deadly radiation and chunks of rock traveling at tremendous speeds. The temperature fluctuated between freezing and boiling as he moved between shadow and sunlight. But Blake had grown up on Earth, where the environment tried to kill humans every day through weather, natural disasters, and countless other hazards. This was just another hostile environment to survive. Bonecrusher arrived in his own combat suit, a massive armored shell that made him look even more terrifying. His claws extended from the suit's arms, and his tail lashed behind him as he moved through space. "So," the Korthok leader said through the radio, "you are the champion of the Deathworlders. You are smaller than I expected." "Size is not everything," Blake replied calmly. The two warriors faced each other among the drifting asteroids around them. Both fleets watched the confrontation that would determine the fate of Serenity Prime. Bonecrusher attacked first, moving with surprising speed for such a large creature. His claws raked across Blake's suit, tearing through the outer armor. But the human captain simply absorbed the damage and continued fighting, using his suit's thrusters to stay mobile. "Impossible," Bonecrusher snarled, as Blake refused to slow down despite the damage to his suit. "You should be dead." "It takes more than that to stop a human," Blake replied, landing a solid blow with his suit's mechanical arms. The fight continued for 20 minutes. Bonecrusher was stronger and better armed, but Blake kept adapting to each new attack. When his suit's life support was damaged, he switched to emergency backup systems. When his mobility thrusters failed, he used chunks of asteroid to change direction. When his communications were cut, he continued fighting in silence. Finally, Bone made a mistake. He put all his strength into one massive attack, expecting it to finish the smaller human. But Blake simply endured the damage and grabbed the Korthok leader while he was off balance. Using the asteroid field's low gravity, he threw Bone into a spinning chunk of rock. The impact cracked Bonecrusher's armor and left him drifting helplessly in space. Blake moved in close, his damaged suit sparking with electrical failures, but still functional. "Do you yield?" Blake asked. Bonecrusher looked at the human warrior floating beside him. Blake's suit was barely holding together, but the human inside seemed completely unfazed by injuries that would have killed most galactic species. For the first time in his life, the Supreme War Leader felt genuine respect for an opponent. "I yield," he said quietly. "You have won, Deathworlder. Your people are truly the ultimate survivors." Blake helped Bonecrusher back to his ship, an act of mercy that confused the watching Korthok warriors. In their culture, defeated enemies were usually left to die. "Why do you help me?" Bonecrusher asked as they reached his flagship. "Because the fight is over," Blake replied simply. "Now we are just two people trying to survive in a hostile universe." When Bonecrusher returned to his bridge, he immediately ordered his fleet to withdraw. But before leaving, he sent a message to Captain Blake. "Human warrior," he said, "you have earned the respect of the Korthok Empire. We will spread word throughout the galaxy that the Deathworlders are not to be challenged. Any who threaten those under your protection will face our displeasure as well." After the Korthok fleet departed, Blake returned to Serenity Prime to find the Zephyrians waiting for him in the main settlement. The surviving population had emerged from their shelters to see the humans who had saved their world. Elder Shimmer swam forward to meet him, no longer showing the extreme fear he had displayed before. "Captain Blake," he said formally, "on behalf of all Zephyrians, I thank you for saving our people. We understand now that we judged you incorrectly." "We are not monsters," Blake agreed, "but we are dangerous when we need to be." Flow of Curious Thoughts had prepared a special gift for the humans. It was a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light, grown from the same living coral that made up their cities. "This is a friendship stone," she explained. "It will always glow as long as there is friendship between our peoples." Dr. Morgan accepted the gift carefully. "We would like to establish a permanent outpost near your system," she said. "Not to control you, but to help protect you if other threats arise." We would welcome that, Shimmer replied. But we ask that you build your station far enough away that we do not accidentally frighten our children with your presence. Blake smiled. That seems fair. We will position ourselves at the edge of your system, close enough to help, but far enough to give you space. As the human ships prepared to leave, Flow of Curious Thoughts asked one final question. Captain Blake, what will you do when other species send distress calls, asking for help from the galactic peacekeepers? Blake looked out at the stars, thinking about all the peaceful species in the galaxy who had no one to protect them from predators like the Korthak. I suppose we will answer them, he said finally. Someone has to. 3 months later, Admiral Harrison received a report that made him smile. Across the galaxy, predator species were avoiding conflicts with weaker races. The mere possibility that humans might respond to distress calls was enough to maintain peace in dozens of systems. Humanity had never intended to become the guardians of the galaxy. They had simply tried to help one species in trouble. But sometimes, the universe chooses its heroes in unexpected ways. The Zephyrians were right about one thing: the humans were Deathworlders, the ultimate survivors. But they had forgotten that survival sometimes means protecting others, not just yourself. In the vast darkness between the stars, a new kind of peace was beginning to emerge. Not because the predators had become gentle, but because they had learned to fear something even more dangerous than themselves: humans who cared about justice.